All right. It's Tuesday, July 30th. There's crap going on about October and Halloween that I just have a problem with. But we're going to talk about some headlines that are from the past, not from the future. Sometimes in the summer, Kyle, the news cycle, not in the general news cycle because of the election, but like automotive news cycle tends to slow down a little in the summer. I don't know if you've noticed.
That's exactly what happens because all the car dealers are out here just selling cars. They're like, forget about talking about anything.
Don't bother me.
Sell cars for another month and a half, then we can talk about all the stuff. Okay.
I know.
Sounds good.
And it's been brutal. It's been brutal. It's so brutal that today we were like, you know what? We're going to have fun. Forget this news cycle talking about the paper clips being changed out at Ford headquarters or whatever it is that we're talking about these days. We're looking for stories and we're going to go back a little bit. But we're still, oh, Joshua Orr, we're going to tell this story. Did you pick up a nice costume? We'll tell that story in a second. It's important to note that next week, even with news cycles aside, the business is moving forward. Regulations moving forward. The things you have to worry about in September are moving forward. So we're having an ASOTU Edge quick shot webinar on the 7th. Is it the 7th? Yeah.
It's the 7th.
It's a week from tomorrow. You have to register now, right? Go to ASOTU.com, register for the webinar. We're going to be with James Ganther of Mosaic. Always fun to have James on. Even more fun to heckle him if you want to be there live and in the comments. We're going to be talking about what's been going on with the CARS rule and what you need to be ready for once the kids go back to school and, you know, Congress is back in session and all that good stuff, because there's some stuff coming down the pike.
It's going to be brewing. That's for sure. It's going to be a hot fall. Hot fall.
Hot fall, not in New York.
Speaking of a hot fall.
No, he didn't. Stop. How do you segue in the intro? That's amazing.
I segued in the intro. Give it to him, Paul. I feel you need to tell the story
so
just
I post,
like with your hand up like this.
I posted on LinkedIn last night
a
picture. It's the rare Monday evening post for me on LinkedIn. I was so angry and upset. I actually posted it on Instagram too. I was in Costco.
He said I went to 2 social media.
I was like, I'm going to Instagram for this one. I went to Costco with my little 4-year-old. And like mom and the girls, and they were out. And so we're like, let's go to Costco and buy dog food because that's what you do. And we walked in, and when you know it, there was a full rack of Halloween costumes. And I was so upset about this. I could just go on social media and denounce it in the strongest possible terms. What are you thinking, Costco? And then everybody in the comments is like, oh, they have stuff out at Lowe's too. And Cracker Barrel's got Christmas stuff up. What is going on with this world?
It's a Hallmark world, and we're living in it, Paul. That's the problem.
It's July.
It's Hallmark's world, and we're living in it. They created these holidays for the money, Paul, for the money.
There is a strange gap, though. Think about it, between the 4th of July and I guess Labor Day kind of counts, right?
Yeah, but that's like you buy food for a week, you know?
Food, not even a week.
Not even.
Because you got to go to school the next day, right? Like there's not a thing. So I guess Halloween really is like there's a pretty big gap there. So I guess if I'm a retail, I'm trying to get creative. I don't know.
Trying to find that.
I wasn't happy. Let's just put it this way. I wasn't happy about it yesterday. Pete Kelso chiming in the comments. I was literally talking about Costco costumes being out too early yesterday. See,
but here's the thing. You went to the checkout line, then you smelled the hot dogs, and then life was good.
No, I didn't. I was angry, Kyle. I was angry. I left angry. They say never go to bed angry. You know, I left Costco angry yesterday.
Oh, poor Costco.
But not poor Costco, because I'll go back and spend all my money.
All the money.
What are they gonna do? Okay, so let's talk about some news. The first story today is a lot different than what we usually do. So since the news cycle in auto does tend to slow down during the summer, we thought we'd try a new segment today where we look back in the industry at some headlines from back, 10 years ago. We're going back 10 years from when you had more hair. Maybe you had darker hair. You probably had less children. Or when, let's be honest, some of our audience was still in middle school. Isn't that weird to think about?
Oh, wow. Stop.
It's so true.
It's true.
You're 21 in the industry today. Guess what? 10 years ago, you were 11.
Oh, my goodness.
You were 11.
That's intense.
All right. So we took it trip back end of July 2014. Automotive news headlines. Number 1, millennials we started talking about millennials back then. We were all in on millennials. Millennials are drawn to car sharing services. Oh no.
Oh.
But eventually they buy. And here's the subhead. Car and ride sharing programs are changing the way city dwellers get around and the way millennials think about car ownership. automakers have noticed and are experimenting with ways to adapt, creating partners with car sharing services or offering their own transportation services. Remember that?
Golly, wasn't that a time?
Oh my gosh. And now like fast forward to what the SAR is this year.
Yeah, we're fine. You think about the reality of cycles and even this morning in a few different like in our daily email and a couple other news sources, just people pointing at, hey, look at Toyota's kind of getting the cycle at this point, where last year they were getting the hammer for not going all EVs, and then they're getting the cycle of like, look, they're doing gas powered with like, and so you look back to 2014 and we're talking about we're not talking about Gen Z. We're talking about millennials. I mean, my generation was just getting hated on.
You were in your 20s, man. You were taking all the shots.
We were taking all the shots, right? And talking about car sharing services, we were talking about that up until 2019. And that has just waned completely. Almost.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just part of normal life now.
Yeah.
And guess what? Millennials are buying a lot of cars.
Lots of cars.
And by the way, they're also doing a really great job working in the industry and managing the industry. It's a pretty awesome time. 10 years ago. 40, what else can we learn from a decade ago? Oh, remember this one? Nissan expands U.S. recall of cars with defective Takata airbags.
Wow.
That was the thing.
What a scandal. What a mess.
Everybody that was a Nissan or Honda just shuddered a little bit when they heard me say that. It was
everyone. I mean, it hit everyone. I remember being a part of just all the conversations, customers calling in, questions on whether or not it's going to blow up in my face.
Yep.
Like, it was a big deal. Yep. Here's a crazy one.
Drink some water here.
There you go. Here's a crazy one. Group 1 Q2 profit tumbles 55% on Brazilian problems. Stock price was around $55 a share.
Okay, wait, yeah, that's a separate note. So that Group 1 profits tumbled 55. I had a check. Go ahead. What was it at?
So it was around $55 a share back then. This is
only 10 years ago.
This is 10 years ago.
Only 10 years ago. Let's put it that way.
Only 10 years ago. And yesterday it closed around, dial it up, $338 a share. Like, look at that.
Yeah, that, if you're counting, is a 614% increase. So meaning if you invested the dollar in the auto industry in Group 1 specifically just 10 years ago, you'd be up 614%. I don't know if you need to call your advisor and be like, hey, what was my portfolio up in the last 10 years? Yeah. Wasn't 614%.
Not at all.
So shout outs to the auto industry on that one. Finally, 10 years ago, they were still in the news. Fisker's Chinese owner, get that, Fisker's Chinese owner plans a second model after Karma output resumes. Speaking of Fisker.
There it comes.
Segue.
All right.
Hit him.
Fast forwarding. Now we're taking the time machine back forward. We're in current day, still talking about Fisker, different kind of Fisker. Fisker Ocean owners are rallying to keep their vehicles operational despite the company's bankruptcy. The Fisker Owners Association, they're calling themselves, is at the forefront organizing efforts to secure parts and maintain their little electric SUVs. Fisker stopped production in May, followed by bankruptcy in June, with over 6,000 Fisker Oceans sold before the stoppage. And then after the stoppage, they were able to unload the rest of them to American Transportation outside New York City for it was 3,200 units or something. So the Fisker Ocean owners, they formed this association to make sure that they could kind of lobby to have continued access to parts and, more importantly, software. American Lease, they did purchase the remaining inventory, maybe adding some parts supply, right? Because they have several thousand, their transportation company, right? They probably have some more leverage there.
Yep.
Daniel Shama.
Well, they also got access to all the software as well.
Right, they did. That's right.
Yep.
The association's attorney emphasized the highest priority for us is to make sure that these vehicles are not very expensive hunks of metal in a year.
Yeah.
The software part of that frightens me. It's not like brakes.
I feel something. I can't imagine having purchased a $30,000-$40,000 vehicle that now you're sitting there going, where am I going to get parts? Where am I going to get software updates? Is this software going to be secure over time?
I didn't think about that one. You gotta be real motivated if you're putting time and energy and trying to develop a hack for a Fisker Ocean.
Yeah, I guess so. That's probably true.
You know what I mean? It's probably the safest EV with no firewall.
It's nothing.
So, and here's another thing though. They were saying in the article that you were only allowed to have one key fob with the vehicle.
Huh.
So you can't get a second key fob. So they're trying to figure out like a way that they can unlock it so they can use their phone as a key.
Smart. Yeah.
But that totally changes the game if you lose a key.
Totally changes the game. Wow.
Yeah.
Golly. This is like a, ooh.
Yeah.
Man, if I would love to talk to like some Fisker owners or part of this association to kind of figure out what they're doing. I'm sure American Lease is going to, if they've got all those vehicles, they're going to be taking that software. And
they're probably going to end up buying the rest of them.
You
honestly.
Would think so.
They're going to buy the rest of them for like 15 grand in like a year.
All of them from all the people.
All of them for 15 grand total. I know. Software.
Oh, poor. Yeah. What a thing.
But 10 years later, who knows what will be 10 years from now. But speaking of software, let's stay on the software thing for a minute.
So if you're the traveling type, you know the dealers are not the only ones looking for cash from a software company, as Delta Airlines is gearing up to seek compensation from cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike, the firm that is known for basically making 1% of Microsoft go down. It follows a software update that affected global businesses, disruption severely impacting Delta. Actually, I had Delta flights totally wiped. I was supposed to be in Syracuse last week.
You were.
It didn't happen.
I want some reimbursement for that.
Listen to this. Analysts estimate that Delta will experience a substantial financial loss ranging from $350 million to $500 million this quarter due to reputational damage and necessary ticket refunds. CrowdStrike's terms and conditions limit their ability to pay fees for the software. So basically, all that Delta can come after is the paid fees, which is nowhere close to that dollar amount, significantly restricting potential compensation claims. Other legal advisors have said that similar cases have shown companies like CrowdStrike actually succeed in defending against these financial damages due to contractual protections.
Yep.
So Mauricio Sanchez, a senior director at a tech market research firm, Del Oro Group, said that CrowdStrike may not have to pay at all. He said, while it will be a miserable summer for CrowdStrike lawyers as they defend themselves from customers with torches and pitchforks, I don't see CrowdStrike having to pay much, if any, compensation.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I guess it makes sense. Who insures this kind of thing, right? If it's that easy for one glitch or what, we'll see. We'll figure out maybe one day what happened. But like for one thing to affect such a large swath of business and inconvenience, right? If you're CrowdStrike, like that's what you're writing into the contract, right?
That's what you have to. Yeah. Absolutely.
And then if you're a business interruption insurance, like how do you like even come close to having a premium that would cover against something like that for an airline? So I think there's probably just a loss, right? It's probably just a loss. And this conversation is super relevant right now. We talked yesterday and went back several back and forths hearing from dealers because CDK came out saying, they're going to offer 1 month's worth of subscription as compensation for, the whole CDK shutdown, last month. And some dealers are just moving on. Some dealers are like 1 month about, could be around 20 grand, not nearly enough. For damages that actually happen, they have to actually prove loss, right? Aside from like overtime hours and things like that. How do you actually prove that business slowed down? Right.
Yeah,
or you couldn't push as many.
And Delta's probably going to have an easier way to go about that just because all their transactions for the most part are digital. But even still, like
canceled flights is a real thing, right? Like we issued this amount of refunds, reputational damage.
Yeah, and I haven't rebooked or anything like that. So like that's just straight up.
Yeah, you're never flying Delta again.
Right.
Steve Greenfield's going to boycott over this.
Not a chance. Yeah. But you look at that and you just like you start to see these software companies and recognize that a lot more is at stake than just like, a simple refund or having to deal with what are the loss potentials around these things. And so I think that there's some level of compassion that can be gained out of this, for dealers with the software companies that are out there, that it's not just an auto thing. It's just a universal thing. When you're dealing with software, when you're dealing with technology, these things could come up and it's going to have a business impact sometime. Being resilient enough to go through that is the best case scenario.
It is. But look, we did our best to give you an engaging 14 minutes and 55 seconds. I hope we accomplished it. So now you can take that energy, that care, that love, that knowledge, those laughs, and go push them into the community.